wow. August 10th, and Putin has a heart attack.
They got hit, look. They made it into the database, those absolute bastards.
Russian ships in the Pacific and Northern Fleet's nuclear submarines are under a new attack by the SBU. Military airfields with strategic nuclear aviation are burning. The SBU attacked facilities of Russia's nuclear triad.
Something's on fire.
Factories that produce the formidable Topol and Yar's nuclear ballistic missiles have been completely blown up. Russia's entire nuclear triad is currently under a significant attack. Breaking news, friends. Ukraine has attacked 2 strategic nuclear airfields. Where the strategic nuclear bombers Engels and Diaghilevo are located. They didn't miss, not by a bit. For the first time, Ukraine attacked ballistic missiles in Bryansk. They're detonating.
Basically, that's where the sheds are burning. Everything's on fire. Clearly a lot is going to burn there. It looks like there aren't any fire trucks there yet. I wish they'd get here soon.
This was a powerful special operation by the Security Service of Ukraine and other Ukrainian intelligence agencies. These were command posts for Iskander ballistic missiles in the Bryansk region. Ukraine is also preparing to attack Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to the publication, Kyiv is planning an operation using naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. Ukraine has attacked 2 out of the 3 elements of the nuclear triad and is continuing further. A new phase of the SBU special operation is being prepared. Moreover, the Yaroslavl motor plant was on fire in Russia. This is a workshop at the plant where engines are manufactured for the Topol M complex vehicles, the intercontinental nuclear missiles Topol M. In other words, essentially the nuclear triad. Let's discuss all this with the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutayev. Ruslan Khamdievich, welcome.
Dasha, good afternoon. Greetings to our viewers.
Ruslan Khamdievich, we attacked ballistic missile launchers in Bryansk. This is a historic event. Let's start with that. What do you have to say about the attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine?
Well, this is a logical continuation of Ukraine's behavior. Ukraine is starting to act further, much deeper. And the vast, extensive expanse of the Russian military, let's say, industrial complex, has a great many enterprises of various types and functions on its vast territory, numerous warehouses, diverse military units, and as we can clearly see, the Ukrainian special services are demonstrating, first and foremost, that they precisely know where absolutely everything is strategically located. Second, that they possess the capability to effectively reach these specific targets. And third, that they are consistently and quite dynamically and purposefully beginning to carry out the crucial work to systematically destroy all of this. You are absolutely right to mention here specifically intercontinental ballistic missiles, which are indeed capable of carrying a powerful nuclear warhead. These missiles are also being destroyed. And here, I think it's worth mentioning to our viewers that yesterday, when Russia was actually preparing to respond to Ukraine with a heavy, powerful strike, Ukrainian intelligence detected activity involving these very Iskander launchers. It is known for certain that 1 Iskander launcher was destroyed and 2 were damaged. So, these 6 incoming missiles, which were apparently and quite deliberately aimed at some critically important administrative buildings in Kyiv, were successfully destroyed. In fact, the very insidious beginning of Putin's cunning plan was completely thwarted. And of course, after that significant and pivotal moment, they tragically lost the crucial momentum that could have genuinely inspired the Russian forces, often referred to as orcs, who were fighting on the front lines, as well as influencing the strategic decisions of Vladimir Putin himself and his closest, most trusted inner circle of advisors and confidants. So look here, it's very interesting how hour by hour, the Ukrainian special services are acting more and more actively. They are not only inflicting significant damage, but even in real time, they manage to observe, gather crucial intelligence on the precise action of Russian missile systems, effectively destroy them, and ultimately cause substantial damage. This is a significant improvement in the skills and conduct of the Ukrainian Special Services Military Command and, of course, the drone operators and missile crews. All of them are acting very successfully and skillfully, destroying Russian installations and the Russian military-industrial complex throughout the entire territory of Russia.
Operation Web continues. The SPU attacked two airfields, Engels and Diaghilevo, that is, two bases for Russia's strategic aviation, as well as an oil depot that supplies fuel to Russia's strategic nuclear aviation. At least 3 storage tanks are currently burning at the Kombinat Crystal oil product storage facility of the Russian State Reserve. In other words, we continue to attack the bases of strategic nuclear aviation. Operation Web is ongoing. A Mi-8 helicopter was destroyed, and a Mi-35 was damaged as a result of drone attacks, including at Bryansk airport last night. Ruslan Kutayev, the floor is yours.
These reserves, the state reserves of fuel, aviation fuel, yes, 3 storage tanks were hit, but according to the latest information, everything is already leaking out of there, and 3 more tanks have caught fire, and this is ongoing. It's possible that the fire will continue, as is often the case. We know from similar incidents at oil depots that it can be impossible to even contain such a blaze. As a rule, the fire spreads from one tank to another, engulfing industrial facilities as well, such as oil processing plants, and all of it, let's say, becomes consumed by the flames. I truly think it's still much too early to draw any definitive conclusions there at this particular moment. The fire is still burning, and it's not yet clear how much will be destroyed as a result of this operation and the actions of the Ukrainian side.
We'll discuss a bit later the fact that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean and that Sevastopol and Crimea have been hit by Neptunes. But for now, I'd like us to focus on a very interesting and important topic. Friends, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. This concerns the fact that something like a hazelnut exploded in the sky over Kazakhstan and broke apart into pieces. And the first to report this were Russian military correspondents, also known as Russian war reporters or Zetniks. They wrote about the failed launch of the Oreshnik. Kapustin Yar is close to the border with Kazakhstan. That night, Putin decided to attack Ukraine. He did attack it, and he surely wanted to use the Oreshnik, an intercontinental missile. The question is, does this Oreshnik actually exist? Did it explode? And why did it explode, Ruslan Kutayev? Let's think this through together.
First of all, I served in Kopesk. I served at the very base, the testing ground we're talking about now, in the automotive troops of the rocket and artillery forces. And indeed, intercontinental ballistic missile tests were conducted there. There, the Astrakhan region borders Kazakhstan, which at that time was the Guryev region. And indeed, tests were conducted there. That's where they were launched. And this launch was supposed to, I analyzed what the experts are saying. The Oreshnik was most likely launched. And the fact that we have pictures and recordings most likely indicates that somewhere over the Kazakh steppes in the air, this Oreshnik exploded, and it basically was unable not only to complete, but for the most part, even to begin its course toward Ukraine. What does this tell us? We know that the first time when it was deployed in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the Oreshnik accomplished less than 5% of what Russia had expected. There was no destruction there. They hit a training center there, and that was all they managed to do. And now, too, it seems they tried to use the Oreshnik for this purpose. They were very upset. They needed to show the orcs back in Russia that they're still a force to be reckoned with, that they can do something, scare someone. But it's not working. It's just not working. They had a failure with the Iskanders. Ukraine destroyed them when they were deployed in the Bryansk region on the front line for an attack on Kyiv. With the Oreshnik, as we can see, it was a complete failure. Russian rocket troops and artillerymen are failing on all fronts. No matter how hard they try, it's just not working for them. And it doesn't work because all of this is built exclusively on Soviet-era weaponry. They have nothing. They haven't accomplished anything. All their claims, all those cartoons have remained just cartoons. And they can't move beyond that. This is the problem of Putin, the Russian armed forces, and this entire Russian fascist horde that would like to drown the entire population of Ukraine in blood. It's not because they don't want to, it's because it just doesn't happen, because they can't. This is what we need to understand and be aware of.
Ruslan Kutayev, let's return to the topic of Russia's nuclear triad, which everyone is talking about now and which in fact was attacked by Ukraine and its special services. All the world leaders have written about this now. They even made an official statement about it. Kaja Kallas officially stated that this is unprecedented. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and even Donald Trump, through his sources, conveyed that he too was stunned by the SBU's special operation. And so, as we discussed last time, it is necessary to attack the Russian Federation's fleet, the nuclear submarines. There is the Northern Fleet of the Russian Federation, which was attacked, and there is the Pacific Fleet of the Russian Federation. We discussed this with you, and just on the eve of our stream today, the Washington Post published a piece saying that Ukraine is preparing attacks on Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. According to the publication, Kyiv is planning an operation using naval drones hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. But it's very hard for me to imagine that Ukrainian intelligence agencies would announce their attacks through the Washington Post. Why was this done? And in general, let's discuss the attacks on the Pacific Fleet, on the Northern Fleet, and how much of a blow this would really be for Putin.
Dasha, let's first agree on something. The Washington Post, Bloomberg, and other reputable newspapers are certainly not the kind of media outlets that would, let's say, intentionally spread fake news. If they wrote about it, then without a doubt, they have solid and verifiable grounds to say so. First. Second, if the Ukrainian intelligence services, armed forces, and political leadership did not prohibit this from being published, it means they have sufficient reason to believe that this operation is under extremely tight cover, and that they are confident that, regardless of the fact that it was made public, they will be able to carry out this operation to the end. Third, and this is very important, the Pacific Fleet, as we understand, North Korea is now, Shoigu is currently in North Korea. Russia is demanding soldiers, and North Korea is supplying ammunition, weapons, and sending people. And now it is very important, if Ukraine really does this, and I am absolutely convinced that they will indeed be able to accomplish it, and they manage to reach Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, the entire Far East region, and if they can even slightly hit some ships, some significant movements there, perhaps even large tankers or crucial cargo vessels. In this particular case, Russia will not just be put in an uncomfortable position, but rather a truly precarious and challenging situation. Russia will be in a state of, crisis, because that is the area where all those ports, even the military bases, are essentially left exposed. Everything that was there in terms of air defense and missile defense has been moved here, closer to the front, to Moscow, and away from there. If such a threat arises now, if suddenly drones start flying, and they will, then in that case, they'll have to pull something away from there, from the front, from here, from the center, and bam, transfer it over there to the Far East. That's bad news for Russia. How are they going to compensate for that? It's impossible to predict because openly China can't provide them with missile defense or air defense systems. North Korea doesn't have the means to protect against such weapons. Russia itself either doesn't produce them at all, or if it does, it's only 1 or 2 units per year. There are no spare parts, there aren't any machines that would allow them to manufacture such complex military equipment today, like, this missile and air defense equipment. So, to be honest, these are extremely serious problems. But even here, you and I have talked about the fact that these problems would arise. We foresaw them.
They said that Ukraine is developing its technological capabilities. In Germany, Merz stated that joint Ukrainian-German production facilities will in the coming weeks already be deployed to the front lines for Ukraine to use missiles produced jointly by Germany and Ukraine. These are the first fruits not just of arms and ammunition supplies, but of the work of joint ventures in Ukraine's military-industrial complex with Europeans, with the British, with the Germans, with the Poles. And these are exactly the results. That's why they're able to reach even Irkutsk. That's why there are real reasons to believe that they'll be able to reach Vladivostok as well, and everywhere else, even Murmansk. So our expectations are not just wishful thinking, our expectations are genuinely high, and all of this combined is destroying Russian logistics. Ammunition and weapons, people, they can't even manage to bring them up to the front, they can't even get them to the front line zone, and that's where they're being destroyed. This is how things are done, relationships are being improved, the whole approach to everything is being refined. Not for nothing do Russian war correspondents sound the alarm. They talk, for example, about the appointment of Madyar as the commander of drones in Ukraine. What a commotion this caused! A person who was sitting in a trench, but as some ordinary soldier or sergeant, started out as an operator. Look at what he achieved. Is something like this even possible in Russia? Never, under any circumstances, could such a rise happen there because of someone's personal qualities. It's impossible. But it is possible in Ukraine, and that's why Ukraine is winning. That's why Ukrainian engineering thought is ahead. Why? Because here the principle is, if you can, take the lead. If you know how, create. That's the Ukrainian principle, and that's why they're winning. There's no need to be surprised. They will keep advancing. That is the outlook for this war.
We can expect another series of explosions in Crimea. In Simferopol, military targets have been hit by Neptunes. There is a kilometer-long line of trucks at the Konhar checkpoint entering the annexed Crimea, a huge number of explosions, and once again the Kerch Bridge is under attack. There's an alert there. But before we discuss this segment called Occupied Crimea Spycom, I want us to talk about a very important point. The West, Europe, and America did not provide us with all the weapons because they were afraid of nuclear escalation. They were afraid of that nuclear triad. They were afraid that if they gave Ukraine the weapons it needed to win, to attack Russia deep within its territory, to drive the Russians out of our land, Russia would start World War III, a nuclear war, and so on. And now Ukraine is showing that we attacked Russia's nuclear triad and there is no nuclear war. Let's just discuss this precedent together. That is, Ukraine did this with drones, not with multi-billion-dollar weapons. In other words, we attacked multi-billion-dollar weaponry, about $7 billion in total, using drones, unmanned aerial vehicles.
Indeed, at the very beginning, when this particular nuclear arsenal, more precisely, the aviation forces of the absolute highest level of strategic purpose and importance, was completely and utterly destroyed and dismantled. After all, it was assumed that, well, after this, if they ever intended to use nuclear weapons. By the way, they were shouting about this in Russia, in Moscow, the military correspondents there. They were encouraging the political and military leadership to use them if they ever decided to do so. But we knew that they would never do it. Why won't they do it? Because they are hostages of the situation they themselves created. Their families, their money, their status, all of it depends on the West. They study there, they live there, they keep their money there in the West. They didn't start this war to die or for some idea. They started all this because of the capricious whim of a madman who was somehow personally and deeply offended within his very being. And that the president, the young, progressive, and dynamic president of Ukraine, everything about him profoundly irritated Putin, his youthful vigor, his sharp intelligence, and his insightful understanding of the situation. And he decided, as he said himself, to teach this jester, this clown, a lesson. And in the very end, it became abundantly clear that Vladimir Putin was indeed the real jester, the true clown, and the undeniable coward. As soon as a truly challenging or potentially dangerous situation arises, he invariably runs away. He consistently hides himself, he completely conceals his whereabouts, and he is profoundly afraid to make any significant or decisive decision whatsoever. So, after this truly remarkable and brilliantly executed operation was successfully carried out, he promptly called Donald Trump and immediately began complaining to the younger Trump about the ongoing situation in Ukraine, specifically mentioning various alleged terrorist acts and other concerning developments. And Trump's behavior is incomprehensible. The president of the greatest country, the greatest state, what is he doing? He is essentially making terrorist demands on behalf of a terrorist state, and Trump is voicing these demands to the whole world. In fact, Putin's demand that Putin is planning to respond to Ukraine in the harshest way, Trump not only doesn't protest, but even more, he broadcasts it. So it turns out that Trump, in Putin's hands, is the tool used by terrorists. And here, America did not act as it was fundamentally obliged to. That behavior was absent. But within America itself, this was given a very serious assessment. They pulled Trump back. He did this, recorded something somewhere in his Mar-a-Lago, and then they quickly removed this recording of Trump because it was absolutely obvious that Trump had basically caved in and was afraid of Putin. In America, they understand that Putin is using Trump as a tool. Putin did everything to put pressure on Ukraine. Putin did everything to use Trump. He really is taking advantage of him. And all of this, I repeat, taken together from different points of view and from different platforms, no matter who is speaking or making decisions. In any case, Ukraine has not only not backed down, not only not stopped, and as we discussed a bit earlier, Ukraine has continued its operations. Ukraine is not looking back at anyone. Today, Ukraine understands that it will only have what it achieves on its own. It's not European weapons, it's not American weapons, but Ukrainian drones that managed to accomplish what they did. And now, regarding what was said in the Washington Post, they didn't say they would strike with American Tomahawks. No, what they said was Ukrainian drones. They will reach Vladivostok and they will attack the Pacific Fleet. This is the true character of Ukraine, the character of the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian president. They don't stop at anything. They keep moving forward. And this is the only thing that can stop Trump, Putin, and everyone else.
Ruslan Kutayev, Russian public pages and media have reported that Putin had a heart attack, and that's why he hasn't appeared in public for a long time. I would like you to comment on this.
Well, I wouldn't entirely rule it out. If someday he does indeed have a significant heart attack, it's almost bound to happen eventually, because blow after devastating blow keeps relentlessly coming at him one after another. Look, for example, at the recent meeting that took place between the German Chancellor and the President of the United States. He arranged his meeting very skillfully, beautifully, and diplomatically. And what principled position did the German leader demonstrate? He did not, on any issue, refuse to support Ukraine. He clearly and unequivocally stated there, directly to Donald Trump, that the country which launched the attack and initiated the aggression is undeniably Russia, and that it is precisely this nation, Russia, that is unequivocally and demonstrably bringing forth profound evil into the world. And so, when the nation of Ukraine is fully supported from all sides, when the brave forces of Ukraine are steadily advancing on the various fronts, when the resilient Ukrainian people are consistently getting stronger and more unified, just look at how much effort and how much money has been poured into Ukrainian society just to find at least 3 people who would crow that Zelensky needs to be removed or that the war should be stopped. They can't even find 2 or 3 people to support what they've been shouting about for 3.5 years. To get support in Ukraine, in Ukrainian society, among the Ukrainian people. Of course, from this, not only will he have a heart attack, I think soon he'll just completely kick the bucket. And that's why I think others understand this too, other people, even those close to him. Actually, I think we've discussed this before. Right now, most likely, there are serious talks about sending Putin into retirement, and in order to keep him from interfering, they're considering one of his daughters. There's talk about Tikhonova. And that's why I think this is also real and it's also serious. Putin understands he can't win. Putin understands he was hoping that Trump could do something, that he could present Ukraine as a side that has already capitulated. Trump can't do that. He can't because besides Trump, there's also Congress, there's the US Senate, and in the end, there's the American judiciary, and there are Americans, 67% of whom support Ukraine. And all of this together doesn't even give the Russian political leadership hope that help might come from somewhere. And that by forcing Ukraine and Europe, which is a close ally of Ukraine, to yield, it would grant Russia victory. Victory. Russia cannot win. Russia needs someone to hand them victory. There is no such player today who can do that. And that's why we can confidently say Ukraine is moving toward its victory. Ukraine is doing everything to win. And going forward, this will happen much more often and more effectively. And over there on the Russian side, they know and understand this.
Ruslan Kutayev, to sum up on the topic of occupied Crimea. Right now, we are carrying out a huge number of special operations, attacking military airfields and targeting the Kerch Bridge for the 3rd time. And now, once again, Neptunes are striking Crimea. Moreover, according to local social media channels, truck entry onto the Kerch Bridge has been closed. When entering the peninsula via the so-called land corridor through the occupied territories, security forces are searching every truck in search of good drones with magnifying glasses, and in general, there is already information circulating that the Kerch Bridge is once again closed and is expecting a strike with an air raid alert in effect. What do you think?
After the Ukrainian Neptunes, the German Tauruses will follow. I have no doubt about that. They're taking aim. Did you notice? Right now, there's a lot of commotion around the Kerch Bridge. And from the land side, both from Crimea and from Krasnodar, from both sides of the Kerch Bridge and by sea, and then there are these maritime drones. Everything is in motion now. They're currently searching for the most effective way to strike. Strikes with Tauruses, the effectiveness of these missiles has long been known worldwide. They will definitely try them out on the Kerch Bridge. They're in Crimea. They already understand this. They understand that. Why? How do I know this? They're fleeing from there, those people. Just ordinary people who came to set up a business. Some were lured in. Some came voluntarily. Some wanted to live there. Some needed to settle down. They realize that you can't build a life there anymore. They understand that the noose is tightening. So what do they want? They want to escape from Crimea. They understand that they could become hostages. Not hostages of Ukraine, but hostages of the FSB and KVD troops, who won't let them leave and will keep them as hostages because there's a danger that through that bottleneck in the Kherson region, the Ukrainian army might and most likely will attack Crimea as well. That's why they will continue trying to keep these residents of Crimea as hostages. That's why everyone understands, and that's why everyone is fleeing.
Yes, by any means, breaststroke, freestyle, however you can. Leave Ukrainian Crimea immediately. A brilliant analysis by the President of the Assembly of the Peoples of the Caucasus, Ruslan Kutayev. Dear friends, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Write a few kind words in the comments to support Ukraine and the armed forces of Ukraine, because we are working for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. That's why every comment and every subscription from you is priceless. Thank you. Ruslan Kutayev, thank you so much. As always, see you soon.
See you soon. Dear friends, please support Dasha and her channel. You will hear a lot of good news from this channel many more times. All the best. Take care.